All right. Hello and welcome to today's discussion of how one organization aims to increase employee ownership with the use of private equity. My name is Sara Kann, Vice President and Chief of Staff at HB Global, and I'll be facilitating today's discussion. With us today, we have Bob Whalen, CEO of HB Global and Managing Partner at HB Capital. We have John Schell, who's Managing Partner at Social Capital, and he's an investment partner to HB Capital. And we have John Sirken, who is the CEO of Hyper Networks LLC, which is an HB Capital portfolio company. So let's begin. Bob, can you share some background information on HB Global, which is an employee-owned company based in Pennsylvania, and your perspectives on employee ownership?
Sure can. Thanks, Sarah. I appreciate it. Really, my story starts with completing an MBA in 2004, and I really came out of that MBA really wanting an opportunity to lead a company with the philosophy, that I had established over my career and before that, which was really based on, my upbringing and participating in team sports. And so fast forward, in April of 2008, I bought a minority interest in HB McClure Company, which is a mechanical contractor in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, with the intention of using the cash flows from the business to buy 100% of the business. Of course, in April of 2008, many of you will remember, we were in recession and didn't know it yet. And so soon after that, I went searching for ways to make the deal more efficient. And one of the first things you look for in making a transaction more efficient is from a tax standpoint, which led me to an ESOP. And lo and behold, the ESOP philosophy, aligned perfectly with what I was trying to do with culturally of the business. And so we really became an ESOP in October of 2010. Not by intention, but by accident and circumstance, and which was really the start of me just being a true believer in ESOPs and the employees getting rewarded for what we accomplished as a business. And so in HB McClure was about a $30 million revenue business with about $2 million of EBITDA when we acquired it. And we've grown now over the last 13 years to be about $550 million of revenue and about $30 million of EBITDA. We've grown the equity of the business to over 100 million. And so the median participant from when we started HB McClure as an ESOP, they now have $200,000 in their account, which we're extremely proud of, and has really become, everything I do professionally is about growing the equity of our employee owners.
So looking back on it, HB has actually created a lot of value for its employee owners over the past 13 years. I know we've been working hard over the last 18 to 24 months to get HB Capital up and running. Can you talk about our decision-making process and reasoning for creating the HB Capital platform?
Yeah, I think it really started with viewing that I think one thing to keep in mind always is that for your employee owners, this is a retirement plan. And just like we were an accidental ESOP, in some ways, we were an accidental roll-up. We didn't start off with the intention of growing a company that now really covers the entire East Coast as well as Phoenix and Salt Lake. It was just something that kind of happened over time. We started doing little acquisitions and that grow. And really from 2014 through today, we've become a roll-up of mechanical contracting, businesses. But now that we are a mature ESOP, we came to believe it was really important for us to reduce the financial risk of the business, meaning to deleverage, to reduce the amount of debt that we have on the business. But we had all this experience of acquisition and growing equity for our employee owners, and wanted to deploy that in a positive way for future employee owners as well. And that's when we really started exploring, having a private equity approach and creating employee owners at the same time. And we really believe that we can acquire companies through a typical private equity approach, get private equity returns for our investors. And the spin on it is that our exit is going to be to create an ESOP. And of course, we're aware that as a private equity fund, we're a fiduciary, but we think we get something by committing to that as well, which is it gives us a sourcing advantage. There's a subsegment of sellers out there that are really interested in not only getting the liquidity out of their business, but also taking care of the employees that help get them there. And that's really what our approach is about and what we're trying to do. And as we started to explore this, there was a lot of investor interest in what we were doing. But the one piece of experience we didn't really have was to do exits, all the way through the exit to an ESOP. And so what we've really decided to do, and through the help of John, as well, is really just to pilot a few companies using this approach to show that we can really, achieve both sides of our mission, which is to create private equity returns for our investors, as well as to create employee-owned companies. And that's what we're in the process of doing right now.
So it's so great to hear that there's such a desire to increase employee ownership, and that this desire is spreading into the private equity markets, which historically those two things usually don't go together, right? ESOPs and private equity. So John Schell, as an investor into HB Capital, can you share with us a little bit about why you chose to partner with us and why our strategy is important to you and how that fits into your investment philosophy?
For sure. And thanks, Sara. Social Capital Partners, we're a nonprofit focused on providing access to ownership for people who otherwise would never have the opportunity. And we're really excited by what you folks are doing at HB Capital. Employee ownership is obviously one of the most powerful ways for us to accomplish our mission. We spend a lot of time looking for scalable models that lead to long-term employee ownership. A couple of years ago, we partnered with a major pension plan to directly finance the sale of Taylor guitars to their 1,400 workers. And we previously profiled that deal here at this symposium. And we dug in there because we think that model is one of the most promising ones out there. And I happen to think that this is another one. And for me, there's three things that make this model so compelling. First, it takes the complexity of the ESOP out of the hands of the selling business owner. We got a crash course in the complexity of ESOP deals with the Taylor Guitars deal. And, having seen that, it's no surprise that less than 1% of US transactions are sold to ESOPs. There's just a lot of complexity for the selling owner, even those who really want to do this. I think that HB can compete with traditional private equity for the other 99 point whatever percent of deals out there. It's proven, certainly what we see in the UK, that more owners would sell to more owners would sell to their employees if it was simpler. And you guys make it simple. You give owners the legacy outcomes they want without all the brain damage of the ESOP. Second thing we like is that, you're experienced enough at running an ESOP to manage a really smart transition, right? So you're thinking about company leadership, financial structure, educating employees, so that when the sale of the ESOP happens, 4, 5, 6, whatever years later, the company's ready for it. And that's another thing we learned in the Taylor Guitars deal. They spent years planning their transition. And it's one of the reasons that's been, crucial to their success post-deal. And your structure allows for that. The third thing we like is that you built a really smart model around the exit to the ESOP that, as Bob said, you're piloting now. And, for us, we think that model that you built will give the company the ability to succeed as a 100% employee-owned company long term. The structure of the exit won't put the company under pressure, but will still provide tremendous benefit to the company's workers. And for us, that part is critical. As a nonprofit focused on the long-term impact of employee ownership, the way that the company exits to employees is super important. And that, you take all those three reasons together, that's why we're backing the HB approach, why we think it's so powerful. The last thing I'll say is we think it's both scalable and replicable, right? So we think that the approach that you're taking can work in a number of different sectors with folks who look like you, but are in different sectors. And the way that you are so open about what you're doing and how to do it right and how we're going to do these pilots and understand what works and what doesn't work and translate that to the rest of the community, I see huge power in proving this model as a way to grow employee ownership across the country.
Thanks so much, John. We absolutely appreciate your commitment to us, and we're definitely aligned with your goals for maximizing employee ownership. It sounds like the thesis of increasing employee ownership through using private equity is part of the driver for you. But, HB Capital is a new company. It's been a short time since we've been established. Bob, could you share a little bit about the current state of HB Capital and what's been keeping us busy over the last year or so?
Yeah, it's actually been really exciting what we've been able to accomplish in such a short period of time. Over the last year, we've done 3 transactions, which have about $300 million of revenue and $30 million of EBITDA and about 700 employees. And so, we're really excited about getting those companies, under our wing, really focusing on the first stage of the process, which is to evaluate each company, help each company develop and become a little bit better each day as a company, and also prepare the employees for being employee owners of their business in the future. And so it's that's the first part of the process. And then, which John brought up, earlier, we really do believe our expertise in being an ESOP for the last 13 years, establishing a new ESOP, running it on an ongoing basis, and financing the transition is really going to help to make this smooth for each one of the companies. And I don't think we can overstate the complexity that doing an ESOP exit is for an owner, and really taking that away and making that easy for the owners is a really big part, I think, of what we are accomplishing in what we're doing here. And in fact, we've had conversations with businesses that we're looking to exit, and they'll ask us, why should we do this with you? And our first explanation of that is, if you want to do this yourself, go right ahead and do it. We'll encourage you, we'll help you, we'll be a resource for you. We are so bullish on ESOPs. We're happy to have companies that we're talking to that go off and do it on their own. But if they don't want to take on that complexity, we're more than willing to do that. And, we believe that we can do that in a way that not only accomplishes that end goal, but gets our investors the return that they should expect in doing a private equity transaction as well.
Perfect. So that's such an awesome track record to close, 3 deals in the last year or so. And let's move on to John Sirken, who is the CEO of Hyper Networks, which was the first acquisition that HB Capital had made. So John, could you talk a little bit about what it's been like to work with us so far since Hyper Networks was the first investment?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Sara. So coming into this, our needs were a little bit unique in that prior to partnering with HB, we had really grown faster than our processes and systems could keep up with. So working capital was a challenge and having access to it. And we didn't have a lot of the foundational elements in place that we really needed to go secure working capital. So my goal was really seeking out a partner who could assist us in helping to stabilize some of the growth we sustained while at the same time focusing on like some of those foundational elements like WIP tracking, financial reporting, cash flow forecasting, budgeting, and then really being mindful that during all of that, we still wanted to continue to grow. We're in a very fast growing industry and there's a lot of opportunity right now. So for me, having worked for more traditional private equity with former roles, it was really important for me to be able to find a partner that understood the business and who was really genuinely interested about its long-term viability. I think that the HB team's passion surrounding employee ownership is really intriguing, and is one of the things that kind of felt us or left us in a spot where we felt this was the right move for us as a company. It gave us the ability to rally the team behind, the ESOP process in a way that we really wouldn't have been able to do with a more traditional investor or owner. So we're just recently passing the 1 year mark since our acquisition. We've done a lot in that time. We started really by focusing on a lot of the financial reporting and standardizing some of our WIP tracking. We were able to leverage some of HB's relationships to secure bonding for jobs that we weren't previously able to secure. We started an ERP transition that was necessary for us to deal with some of the complexities of the work that we do. We acquired a custom software solution that we had been co-developing so that we could gain resale and exclusive use rights of it. We implemented an entrepreneurial operating system to help provide a standardized, I'll say, routine way for us to share our goals and strategies and results with employees, and at the same time collect feedback from them on what their most important issues are to help drive results. We launched recently a new market that was well outside of our coverage area, which is really exciting for us. And here, now that we've kind of closed the first year of ownership, we've paid discretionary bonuses to our key leaders and accrued bonuses that'll be in line for payment to every employee in the company, which are really significant. I mean, it amounts to something in the 10% of our operating profit in the first 12 months that'll have been paid out in bonuses. So from my perspective, our relationship with HB has been really exactly what we were told it would be. All of the commitments that were made were followed through on. We retained our staff through the acquisition, and we didn't have any, directed structure changes. And HB's not pried their way into operations. Our meeting cadence with the team has been one that we establish and we set. And the team's been really responsive to areas that we needed help in, which, as I mentioned, were largely surrounding, financial reporting and some modeling for new markets. So the relationship has been great.
Hey, Sarah.
And it sounds like,
Sarah, maybe I could add a few points.
Sure.
Relative to some of the things that we're doing with hyper networks, because I think there's some aspects of it that really cross over to any transactions we would be involved in. We worked really hard on the front end of our transactions to articulate to the management teams of what issues we're going to be involved in going on a go-forward basis, and which things we're really relying, on the team to be responsible for and keep autonomy. We think autonomy is a really big, important aspect of the companies that we work with. They take great pride in what they do. They know their business. We're experts in mechanical contracting business. We're certainly not experts in every aspect of 5G infrastructure, which Hyper Networks is part of. And we try to clearly articulate on the front end, what things we're going to be involved in and where maybe we can bring some expertise that's needed, and the things that we're going to stay out of, and really try to build a level of trust from day one, that we're working together, and, back to just getting a little bit better each day. I mean, that's really, what we're trying to accomplish over the, first 3 to 5 years of this transaction is just, what things are we going to do to just get a little bit better each day. And so, I think that that's one of the important things that really ties into the ownership and developing this company, so they're ready to fly on their own at the end of this process of being an employee-owned company, which we just think has so many benefits over and above the financial results that we're able to produce for the owners.
Thanks, Bob. I think there was a couple of pretty good points, to get across as far as like how the relationship actually works. And it sounds like, John, that we weren't misrepresenting ourselves, and basically what we said you were going to get is exactly what you got. So hopefully that just leads us to a more continued, fruitful relationship as we work to get the employee ownership set up for you.
Yeah.
John, if you've ever wanted to call these guys liars, this is your chance.
Exactly. So wonderful. So I think we're just running short on a little bit of time here. So we just wanted to move to final thoughts around HB Capital and how, we're planning on, using private equity for ESOP, transactions. So John Shell, did you want to go ahead and give us your final thoughts? We'll start with you.
Sure, no problem. Look, so for us, employee ownership is about two things, right? One is creating the opportunity for workers to share in the wealth created by their companies. And the other is to ensure that the incentives of the owners of the company are aligned with great long-term outcomes for workers. Both of these are important, but if you don't get the incentives part right, then the resiliency won't be there long-term. My favorite fact about ESOPs is that in economic downturns, they tend to lay off a fraction of the employees that traditionally owned companies do, and then they tend to outperform when the downturn ends. And that's because they have the incentive to think about the long term. They have no problem sacrificing short-term profits if it means better outcomes for the company and its workers. And so what HB does is it provides the first part, for sure, which is the wealth generating, and lots of people can do that. But they also provide the transition on the incentive side, which is the part that doesn't happen all the time. And so that's why I think this is a great marriage of both, a private equity approach that provides appropriate returns and can compete directly in the marketplace, but also provide great employee ownership results, both on the wealth side and the incentive side. And I think this is what happens when you combine people who really get the finance side of business transitions with people who really care deeply about employee ownership and how that can change the lives of workers. And that, I think, to me, describes the HB team and why we're super excited to be a part of this.
Thanks so much. John Sirken, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think just John Shell spoke a little bit about the incentives, and Bob talked about aligning kind of culture with the business. And I think for us, we're a good example of where that fits and where that works, right? I think that the things that our ownership and our employees want are the same things that that HB wants. And so we're excited about the momentum that this employee ownership has, and we're really grateful to be part of kind of how this shapes things into the future.
Great, thanks, John. Bob, final thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's important to understand. I really believe strongly in capitalism. I think it's created tremendous improvements in our lives, and this is our way of just using that system to make it better. And so I think the capitalists involved, the investors that are investing in our business, we want them to get a return that's adequate for the risk that they've taken to participate in our companies. But at the same time, they can't do it without the employees, and every employee, and everything that we do, when we pay short-term bonuses, when we create wealth through the equity, every single employee in our companies participate in that growth. And I think that that's really, what we're trying to do is just take the next step to recognize that every single person that's part of our system, and frankly, including our customers, needs to get value out of what's being produced by the companies. And I think employee ownership does a great job of recognizing all the constituents, not just part. And I think that that's what we're really, helping to move forward with what we're doing, and to, combine, access to capital with employee ownership. I really think is going to change a lot of lives. And as John said earlier, we're about scaling it. This is about proving out a concept that can then be scaled so that we can make employee ownership even broader than it already is. And I think a lot of people, miss that about 10% of the workforce is covered by some sort of employee ownership. And we're looking to just accelerate that and to be part of the solution, for making employee ownership a bigger part of our economy.
Excellent. All good things to come. And I think that's all the time that we have for today. We appreciate everyone who sat in on our discussion, and please reach out to us if you have any further questions. Thank you.